Am I doing enough? Am I failing them? What if they never learn to read? What if they can't function in life when they get older? Should I pick a different curriculum? Should I put them back in school? Maybe I switched curriculums too fast. Maybe I didn't switch fast enough. Why does every reading lesson have to end in tears? How do I encourage them to read when it's tearing our family apart? When it's causing relational issues because they don't want to do it because they feel stupid or they don't get it? What am I supposed to do? Hi, my name is Katie, and today's video is going to be a little bit different. Today we're going to be talking about the struggle of what to do when your kid can't read. I'm going to share with you guys my story and also share with you guys some truths and some really practical things that you can do if you're also in this position. So let's get started. Hi, my name is Katie and welcome to Life in the Mundane. I am a second generation homeschool mom of 6 beautiful kiddos, and on this channel we talk all things resources. I love to share with you resources that are going to help you in your homeschooling and help encourage you in your biblical parenting and how you can utilize those to their fullest potential so that you can make the most of the little moment. I should give you a little bit of background on this topic. In my family, I have 6 kids, and so far every single one of them have been struggling readers. But you see, some of them have been struggling readers where they've just been late to the game. They have eventually learned how to read. They are reading fine now. They have caught up, but it just took them a lot longer. I've also had ones who are still in the process and still struggling to learn. And then I also have ones who have been diagnosed with severe dyslexia, with auditory processing issues, some visual tracking problems, and so much more that has led to having a child that's getting ready to go into 6th grade who can only read at a 1st grade reading level. You see, this has been a struggle for me for a long time. All of those questions that I asked in this intro, I have had those doubts and those questions and those feelings even as early as this week. Because when you have a child who struggles in learning, regardless of the area, you beat yourself up as moms. We as homeschool moms carry a big responsibility, and we can tend to put a lot of pressure on ourselves for our child's success. And rightfully so, we should take their education seriously, and we should understand the calling that God has put on us. But instead, oftentimes we take it to the nth degree. We take it too far, and we put a lot of pressure on ourselves and on our children, and it can cause issues in our relationship. We aren't on the other side of this. We're right smack dab in the middle of this. And I wanted to come and share with you guys some of the things I've learned through this process. And I'm going to share with you guys some of the truth that I have to combat these lies with. But I want you to know that even though I know what the truth is, I still struggle with those lies. I still struggle with, I'm not enough. I messed up. What am I doing wrong? But anytime Satan puts those lies in our ears as moms of you're not enough, you're not doing this right, maybe there's something you did wrong, there's truths that we can combat that with. And it's important to know those truths even when we struggle, and to maybe even write those down so you can revisit those on those tough days. So what are some of the truths in this situation? The truth is 1 in 4 children struggle with reading. Some of those will just be late bloomers, and that is totally fine. There are very few things in life, honestly, that everyone does at the exact same time in life. And sometimes we can get really stuck on the average, but understanding that there are always going to be people who do things earlier or later, and there's nothing wrong with that child or with that parent because of that. We're individuals, and we grow at different rates. But there are also going to be a selection of children that are going to have diagnosed learning disabilities, like dyslexia. According to one study, 20% of kids will be diagnosed with an actual learning reading disability. So you're not alone. I know another lie that I often tell myself is, should I have put him back in school? Should I outsource? Should I not be doing this anymore? Am I failing him? And the truth is, there are times when intervention is needed. We have actually gotten a tutor this past year, and it has been one of the best decisions we've ever made. That being said, we have to remember that whether it's public school or private school, outsourcing is not always the answer. There are kids who are massively struggling with reading in those schooling situations. And the success rate is going to be a little bit less when it comes to those in the school system because teacher to student ratio is much larger. So they can't give as much one-on-one attention no matter how much they love or want to. It's also hard because in the public school system, everything is combined when it comes to levels and subjects. So if you are in third grade, you are in third grade math, reading, history, science, all of the above. Homeschooling allows us a little more flexibility. So I can make sure I'm not holding my child behind just because of their reading. They can continue to excel in the areas where they don't need as much reading or where we can create adaptions. Just remember, the grass is always greener on the other side. Yes, it can look like a good option, and sometimes public school may even be the option. But I just want to encourage you to really think about, would this really make the problem go away, so to speak? Or is it just that you're worn down, you're stressed? When it comes to adaptions, we have to remember we are not cheating. We are not allowing our child to get away with not being able to read. We can encourage them to continue to learn, but we can also provide adaptions for them. What if they can't? What if you play this out and at the end of the day, your child still struggles with just basic reading skills? They can still succeed. There are lots of adaptions out there. There are audiobooks for information. There's speech to text. There is text to audio. There are pens that you can get that you can run along the page that will read it to you. If you think of those who are visually impaired, they live fully functional lives. And yes, there is Braille that they can read, but if you think about it, there's a lot of situations where Braille is not provided. So they do many things auditorily, and our kids can too. Now, I don't say that to say that most likely your child will never learn to read, because the truth is most of our children will learn to read at least on some functional level. But if you're so worried about it, if I'm so worried about it, and I play it out to that degree and understand that there are so many adaptions, we live in a totally different world, and there are things that can be done to help our child succeed in life. It doesn't mean I'm not going to teach them to read. It doesn't mean I'm not going to continue to fight this battle each and every day, but it does mean that I can rest assured that they will be okay. Ultimately, the truth is that your child is made in the image of God, fearfully and wonderfully, and He doesn't make mistakes. Your child has struggles, but they also have strengths. They are made in the image of God, and yes, they may have something that is hard for them to do, but He will equip us for what He has called us to do, and the same goes for our kids. We can continue to pull out our child's strengths out of them, to encourage them. We as parents have to be careful, because when reading is a struggle, it means many other subjects in life are going to be struggles. So we need to find ways to build our child up, to help them to see the person God made them to be, and not let them be defined by their ability to read or to not. Okay, Katie, so all of that is good and great, but practically, what do I do? I'm struggling. You're struggling. How can we come alongside our kids? How can we help them? How can we give ourselves a little peace and reassurance? Well, let's talk about that. The first practical thing, cramming doesn't help anyone. When our children are behind, we tend to panic as homeschool moms, and we tend to try to just cram a lot of information at them, whether that's doubling up on reading lessons or whether you try to get a more intensive program. All of these things we need to be careful of when our child is struggling. We need to remember that slow and steady wins the race. Short but consistent lessons will prove far more effective than spending hours and hours every single day drilling in something that your child is struggling with. Also, don't forget to make sure that you always offer something to your child learning-wise that they excel in. Because if they only focus, or if their primary focus throughout the day is something they struggle in, and we never give them that opportunity to thrive and succeed, we are going to have children who hate learning. The second thing that you can do is definitely do audiobooks for as much as possible. Now, I know that audiobooks can be somewhat controversial. Some people feel like it's cheating. I've done a lot of research, and I did a lot of research for this video, in particular on what is the difference between audiobooks and actually reading. And you know what? The only skill that is different in those two is the decoding process. But as far as actually absorbing the information, retaining it, and being able to understand it and communicate it, they really function the same. It's kind of, one of the people that I was talking to mentioned that it was sort of the same as having different modes of transportation. If somebody rode their bike to work and somebody drove their car to work, you wouldn't say the person who rode their bike was cheating or the person that drove their car was cheating. They just use different methods to get to the same location. And that's what we're doing with audiobooks. Giving our kids audiobooks, whether it's for their textbooks, whether it's for their independent reading, those are still super valuable. Yes, when you do audiobooks, it is important that you go back and you ask comprehension questions, but you would do the same if your child was actually reading a book. Information can be retained. One of the disadvantages of audiobooks is when we read something and we don't understand it, we typically go back and reread it. One of the disadvantages of audiobooks is sometimes people don't go back to redo it. But teach your child how to use audiobooks. Teach them how to press the rewind button if they need to hear something again. Teach them how to write something down if it stuck out to them or they had a question about it so they can remember it later. These can be incredible tools for you. I'm not suggesting that audiobooks replace reading for all of your kids. For some, that may be a necessary step. And that's kind of where we are. Not that we're not encouraging reading still, but as far as independent reading, enjoyment reading, things like that, we have switched over to audiobooks. But for some kids, it might need to be used in tandem with reading actual books. So my daughter, for example, struggles, but not as much as my son. And so she'll do a little bit of time each day in audiobooks and a little time each day in reading herself. And it kind of helps build those skills and helps introduce her to still all the great rich vocabulary and other things there are to be had through reading. If you want to know how to use audiobooks or you want encouragement as a mom, the third thing I would tell you to do is to go right now and download Andrew Pudewa's IEW podcast. Andrew Pudewa is a teacher. He created this fantastic program of writing and spelling and all of these things. But you know what? His child suffered with severe dyslexia. And I'm not talking about a child who struggles until they're 10 to learn how to read. I'm talking about a child who struggles into their teens on how to read. And now he is wildly successful. And Andrew shares a lot on there, on that podcast about that struggle. He shares a lot about information and helpful resources for parents and just encouragement. Sometimes it's just nice to hear a success story. I will try to link down below. I believe there's a playlist of his dyslexia specific topics or struggling reader specific topics, and I will try to link that down below. But I would encourage you, mama, to go listen to that today. Another thing I would encourage you to do would be to make sure that you make adaptions in other areas so your child doesn't have to be held behind in every area of school. I kind of mentioned this before, but some examples of this. In public school, what they say, if a child is not caught up to reading level by 3rd grade, they will most likely struggle in school and potentially have a higher success rate for failure if they haven't caught up by 3rd grade. And the reason for this is not because 3rd grade is the magic number. If your child isn't caught up by 3rd grade, they're not gonna get it. The reason for this is because in 3rd grade, everything changes and every subject requires copious amounts of reading. So if they can't read the instructions and no one's reading it to them, they're going to have a higher rate of failure. We don't have to do that as homeschool parents. We can make adaptions. We personally love to use teaching textbooks for math. And what I love about it is they read the problems to the kid. If the child doesn't need it, they don't have to listen to it. But each problem that pops up on the page, they have written instructions on the program, also reads each word. My son can do math completely independently. He doesn't feel held back. He doesn't feel less than. He can succeed, and he is a whiz at math. And I love seeing him succeed in that. But it's because of those adaptions that he doesn't have to be held back or feel behind in those things. If you want to learn more about teaching textbooks, I have done a video on that, and you can check it out up in the iCards or down in the description below. But 2 other things I want to encourage you, mama, is that do not let reading lessons or the process, the struggle of reading cause major relational shifts in your family. I know that it is hard. I know when a child struggles with something, they don't want to learn it, which means automatically the lessons when you teach it to them are going to be more challenging. It's going to be a struggle, but it doesn't have to ruin relationships. Like I said, keeping those lessons short and sweet, trying to end before the tears, even if the lessons are only 5 minutes long and you have to build your way back up, even if it's hard and you have to do the hard things, making sure to build up your child, making sure to let them know that they're doing a good job even when it's hard. These things can be really helpful. And the final thing I want to tell you is, yes, there are times where intervention is necessary. And please don't be afraid to seek that intervention. You're the parent, you can do the research, and you know your child. Each person is in a different situation. There are times when intervention is necessary. I would encourage you, Mama, to realize that you can have intervention in one area of your homeschooling without feeling like you have to give over all of it. It doesn't have to be, well, just take them in everything. It can be just helping them in one area. I hope this has been helpful. I know this video is a lot different than the content I typically put out, but I'm hoping to share with you once a month a struggle that I'm having in my homeschooling and sharing with you guys some of the truths and the practical things that can help you, hopefully, if you're going through something similar. Please let me know down in the comments if you've liked this video, and we'll talk to you next time. Bye.